Hello and welcome back, everyone. So, we are reading this book of Nicolas Dirks, Casts of Mind. Uh, in the previous video, we left a marker on page number 47. So, in this video, we are going to continue. And at the very beginning of this video, let me give you the general idea of what I have read today, of the further content that we are going to discuss in this video. Is that a lot of white people are interested in this concept of caste. It started with the company officials, that is the British company that worked over here for the economic interests and their employees. Then it came to the missionaries or the reverends or the fathers of the churches, local churches that were established by them. Then it went on to the academic circles of France, Germany, and even the Americans got involved at a later stage. In fact, I found a new book, or my further reading after this one, that is written by Louis Dumont, that is Homo Hierarchicus. That is actually the name of the second chapter that we studied in this book. This is the third chapter. So yes, for further reading, I've also got a new book, and I've also come across some new words unstintingly. Okay, I challenge you right now to, if you really know the meaning of that word, comment it below without Googling it. I had to Google it. Even I had to Google the pronunciation of that word, unstintingly. Okay, fine. I'll tell you the meaning when we come to it. But yes, in this video, the overall sentiment or the overall feeling that I get is these people were very interested about understanding the concept of caste. Okay, and I'll show it to you in the further parts of this video exactly why and what is the conclusion or an inference that we can draw from that. Alright people, then let's get to it. So the first paragraph over here that I've highlighted is, it is striking that a certain kind of Christian position could now accommodate official views of caste rather than simply being at war with them. So now the Christian colonizer had come to the realization that caste is something that you cannot. I keep on saying this word caste, that in itself should tell you about, the colonization of the mind. The exact word is Varna, but the word caste has stuck. A lot of people in our country, they understand Varna through the lens of caste. That should tell you a lot about the colonial tint in the vision that a lot of people have. And in fact, the language that I'm using is the language of the colonizer. Okay, I hate every bit of it. But now that I have mastered this language, I would not go as far as saying that I have mastered this language, but I know it enough to speak it in a certain way. All right, I'll make a separate video about why I choose to make these videos in English and why not in Hindi. That's a separate story altogether, but right now we are going to focus on this work. So let's see. So now post 1858, 1857, when there was a big rebellion, we all have seen that movie of Mangal Pandey. So now the Christians were coming to terms with the concept of caste because they had encountered something that was unsurmountable by the power of their gospel, the power of the truth that was revealed to them. That truth was not sufficient to overcome a centuries old concept of caste. There, I said it. A lot of Christians might find it offensive, but that is how it is. Your gospel wasn't sufficient to overcome this concept of Varna that was conceptualized centuries ago before your faith came into existence. But yes, it's not me saying it. A lot of authors have also conceded the same. You can read this over here. I've highlighted it in blue. By this time, Schering had accepted. Now, who is this fellow Schering? Let me hear. Reverend M.A. Schering. Reverend means somebody who is an official of the church, somebody who is related to the church or connected to the church or is helping the church in an official capacity. So it is that person saying that rather than simply being at war, by this time Schering had already accepted the impossibility of mass conversion. Now, this phenomenon of mass conversion that they are talking about, we have already witnessed it in many of South American countries such as Brazil, countries of Europe, even the United States as well. So this concept of mass conversion is when the colonizer goes to a foreign land, okay, they will convert the entire population en masse. And that was their experience so far. Before they landed on the shores of Bharat to convert people, what had they experienced? Their experience was that when they went on the shores where the message of gospel had not spread, all right, they will convert people en masse. It's like the entire country would convert within a span of, let's say, 5 years. But they had been here for more than 50, 60 years by the time of 1858. Okay, I'm not so good with dates, but yes, 50, 60, maybe a century. Okay. But so far they had not managed to convert people en masse. So there was something seriously, there was some serious strength in this civilization, something that was preventing conversion, and that was the caste or the Varna system. We have already established this in the previous chapter. By the time sharing blah blah blah, and even he wrote with approval of the Hindu social reformers who had clearly refused to abandon their own religious convictions. You may have heard this phrase, but I do not advocate, or I do not subscribe to this use of the word India, because India does not have any organic origin in Bharat or has any academic or any basis whatsoever in our own literature, in our own scriptures and everything else. But right now, to make a point I would like to use, you can take an Indian out of India, but you cannot take out the Indian from within. So even the people, even the social reformers who were talking about social reform, who had bought into this idea that the white person is somehow civilizationally and intellectually better, even they were not ready to abandon their religious convictions. Okay. So this fellow, Reverend Schering, he was obviously following the guidelines that were set by Max Muller in asserting that caste as now existing was totally unknown to the race on the first. Yes, this is also one of the other points that I am trying to make. And I think Sai Deepak has said this in many of his interviews. I would just like to reiterate or repeat what he has already said. And I'm sure a lot of people before him have also said this. Okay, Schering followed what Max Muller in asserting that caste as now existing was totally unknown to the Hindu race on first entering into India. So this has been a very big, malicious and vicious lie that was told to us, that we are not the original or indigenous inhabitants of this land. It is totally false. The Aryan migration theory has been completely busted. Okay. There was nobody who came over here from outside. We are the descendants of the Aryans. Okay. So yes, here Max Muller was of the opinion that when adhering to this theory that somebody came from outside to populate this land, and caste as a concept did not exist when they first entered, if at all they entered. So yes, and can you imagine, this is the fellow who inspired the Gandhian thought. Max Muller, he thought that people came from outside to populate this land. And what we are going to see in the further parts of this video is this, unceasing and, I would say criminal up to a certain extent, some hate that is targeted or pointed towards the Brahmins. Okay, Brahmins are the priestly class. Okay, now we can understand why the Christian or the white colonizer or the Christian colonizer came up on the shores of Bharat after facing the Catholic and the Protestant fights in their own home against the Jews. Okay, remember, Christianity divorced itself from the intellectual whole of Judaism. Okay, so if they were coming after facing this within their own faith, within their own country, obviously they are going to see everything through that lens. So when they arrived on the shores of Bharat, they saw the Brahman, that the priestly class, as the major impediment towards their goals or their aspirations of mass conversion. So that is why there was this specific targeted hate towards the Brahman. Here you can see the wily Brahman, tyrannical, intractable, ambitious. Caste therefore owes its origin to the Brahman. It is his invention. So obviously they had to target their hate, target their frustration towards somebody. So that somebody was Brahman. That since they are the ones who are sitting at the top of the Varna system. By the way, Varna system was horizontal, not vertical. In the future, maybe I'll put in a video series about what exactly was Varna system. But right now we are focusing on this one. So yes, according to the white person, according to the Christians, caste was a concept that was invented by the Brahman. You can see the frustration. You can see why they were very frustrated, because they were not able to convert people. Their gospel wasn't enough. So they had to blame somebody. Why? Because the gospel cannot be incorrect. All right. Next up, you'll see that, and although caste did not exist at the beginnings of the Aryan life in Bharat, finally somebody had the balls to say, okay, I think a lot of people are scared to use the word Arya or Aryan because of what happened in Nazi Germany. Okay, so this guilt tripping over somebody misappropriated our concept, our way of life, our theory, and did some horrible things. That is used as the reason why we cannot reclaim it. And although caste did not exist at the beginnings of the Aryan life, the Brahman was not able to engineer it in the childhood. Okay, so it was something that was put out there in the public domain, that it was indeed the Brahman who started the Varna system. Caste is the sworn enemy to human happiness. Okay, this you'll see this narrative still prevalent in our regional and national politics as well. This is the biggest proof of still being in that mental colonization state. Caste is sworn enemy to human happiness. Caste is opposed to intellectual freedom. Caste sets its face sternly against progress. Caste makes no compromises. The ties of caste are stronger than those of religion. Caste is intensely selfish. Okay, so if you had to do a thought experiment to see whether all these people the so-called right intellectuals, when they say that you are still living in the colonial mentality, if you had to see if that is real or not, there's one thought experiment that you must do is this: caste is a sworn enemy to human happiness. This has been popularized in the social narrative or the political narrative in our country, that everything that is wrong with Bharat can be possibly traced back to the Varna system. It is due to the Varna system that some categories or some strata of the society is, outside the developmental periphery of Bharat. It is only due to the Varna system that we are not able to develop and stand up on the scales of, the Western standards, so to speak. It is the one that is hindering our national progress, and that is still prevalent. You will find people who know nothing about caste. Okay, they'll speak as if caste is the enemy. But yes, here he believed that a great change for the better has commenced with the first steps of some of the foremost thinkers and actors in Bengali society. And although he was uncharacteristically optimistic about indigenous transformation, he encouraged the formation of serious anti-Brahman sentiment. Okay, this was the genesis of what we are facing. I think a lot of people have also spoken about this, the Brahmin hate in our country. This is where it springs from. Okay, so yes, obviously I'm not completely denying that Varna system had its own shortcomings, but in few minutes, I'm going to put in front of you few lines that will tell you why exactly is the white person, or why exactly were the Westerners interested so much in the caste system. Okay, let's see. By 1931, some caste groups were distributing handbills to their fellow caste members to tell them how to answer questions about their religious and sectarian affiliations. Now, I would recommend that you do this parallel thinking. Okay, one part of your brain must focus upon what was happening in 1850s and 1900s and what is happening currently. Okay, currently what we have is we have regional political parties that are usually they'll have a name that does not tell you or does not explicitly mention the community that is running it, but the leaders obviously if the leader of that political party belongs to a certain community, then that political party people from that community will vote en masse for that political party. We know this to be a reality. So what happened post 1858 was people, the Brits, obviously they were interested a lot about caste and all, so they mainstreamed that subject. Okay, there were censuses undertaken, and people were asked questions, sometimes even difficult questions about their social customs, about the caste or the Varna that they belong to. So that is how they were segregating people. When I say they, the Brits, that is how they were segregating people. So this led to a consciousness within people that yes, if the state is segregating us in this way, then maybe we should also be conscious about it. Okay. So by 1931, so what happened is these caste censuses were so prevalent, it had such deep impact upon state legislation. When I say state legislation, the company was making rules, or the parliament in Britain or Westminster was legislating on behalf of the company in Bharat. But yes, it was definitely affected, the census or the ethnographic study that they were undertaking. This led to communities taking active steps to maintain one stand. Okay, so there were distributing of handbills, if you see, their fellow caste members to tell them how to answer questions about their religious and sectarian affiliations and also their race, language and caste status. So when the Brits, when they were undertaking caste census, there were people going door to door asking questions because they wanted to document that how many castes were there, how to behave with these people, how to control these people. So they were asking some questions. Now to unify or to mobilize support for their own community, what were the members of the community doing? That they would distribute handbills. They would give them prepared answers. This is how you answer. Okay, so that this tells you that people had become conscious of their Varna identity. And this is how, and that is still the case. Okay. Here, let's see. William Crook, author of many ethnographic works and perhaps his most critic, argued against Risley with particular vehemence, suggesting that occupational criteria provided much more comprehensive and accurate indices for understanding caste as a system than did a race. So earlier, the entire scholarship was largely focused on race, that caste has something, or the Varna has something to do with race. But there were indeed some people who believed that no, it was basically a classification based on occupation. So that was also gaining traction. Here, it was clear you should know a man by his caste. And I think this is also very prevalent currently as well. Whenever you meet somebody who is an elder. So now we are clear. Let's see. It was clear you could know a man by his caste. Now, at least once in life, everybody has experienced this. When you speak to somebody, and largely it is the elders. I think a lot of young people have now chosen to consciously be unconscious about their caste identity. Okay. I don't know whether that's a good phenomenon or not. We can sit and discuss about it. But I think a lot of people are now, like I said, are consciously unconscious about the caste identity, and they have put the nation first. That is, in a sense, I would say, a good outcome in the millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Beta, and so on and so forth. Like I said, we can sit and discuss, but right now we'll focus on this book. It was clear you could know a man by his caste. So if you speak to somebody who is old, let's say 50, 60, 70, 80, the elders, when you speak to them, and if you introduce yourself to them, they will ask you your name, but they will, if you don't already tell them while introducing yourself, they will ask you your surname as well. Okay, and this has nothing to do with discrimination. It has nothing to do with, they just want to know to which Varna you belong, what is your thought process. Because the Varna identity is essentially a compilation of thought patterns, and those thought patterns translate into actions. Now those thought patterns, they are carried on generation to generation in each Varna. Okay, so that is what the elders essentially want to know when they ask you your surname. And if you have, largely everybody has experienced this at least once in their life, because it happens. Okay, here, in Risley's view, caste has an ambivalent status. It is both religious institution and a social and a civil one. We've already discussed this in previous videos. Yes, Varna is something that is inherently, okay, intertwined with this concept of dharma. There cannot be dharma without the Varna system. So if somebody tells you that the Varna system had nothing to do with dharma or the Arya dharma, the possibility is either they have been indoctrinated by this left liberal education, or they know nothing, or they've studied nothing, or they read nothing about dharma or Varna. The factors of nationality in Bharat are two. That is what during those times they thought: the common use of the English language for certain purposes, and the common employment of Indians in English administration. Let's see if there is anything. But what you will come across in this book is a lot of Westerners were interested in this concept of Varna, because to a Western mind, you know, they were, I would say they were intrigued. Their interest was piqued. They were curious to understand this system of classification. Okay, because it was, in essence, it was preventing the mass conversion, and they were infuriated. This was a practical affront to their gospel, because I've mentioned this in many of the previous videos as well, that both these monotheistic traditions, Christianity and Islam, they want to win more converts to their faith. Why? Because they want to legitimize their claim of being the only true religion. And that legitimization of that claim depends on how many people follow that, and that particular belief system or that religion. So that is why when they encountered the Varna system that was essentially preventing their aspiration or hindering their realization of that aspiration, they were furious, and this led to their curiosity into studying. So in the further paragraphs of this chapter, you will find that there were intense studies that were undertaken by the Westerners to study the Varna system. Yep. For Hegel, as a result, caste fails to establish a relationship with history, and India remains plunged in a dreamlike state that necessitates its subjection to Europe. Here you see the basis or the seeds of this, delusion of superiority. That since they had accepted the gospel, and since we were still stuck in this concept of Varna system, okay, it was necessary for them to subjugate us and convert us. You can see it's like, somebody being disgruntled about something that they have not being enough in front of something that someone else has. British colonial sense that India had no history and the entire force of caste system was to hinder political development. He also naturalized the establishment of sociological view of India that went well beyond the specific claims of colonial representation. Yep. So they were, I think, just that. Yeah. When I first went to graduate school in early 1970s, I was told that I was joining a group of scholars who were on the verge of major breakthrough in understanding of caste. Yes, they had to understand it because they had encountered, like I said, I keep on repeating this, but yes, people in our country, I think they don't recognize the importance or the gravity of this concept that is Varna. Okay. It was so bulletproof, it was so solid that these people, they could not convert. And I'm not saying it in this entire book. It It is the Westerners or the white people, they have themselves accepted it, that Varna system was major impediment or hurdle to conversion. Yep. Dumont went on to clarify the sociological implication. Yeah, he is the author. Okay, this is the book that I was talking about. Let me put it up here. Homo Hierarchicus. That is the book that is coming after this. And it is supposed that this is the book that was, a seminal work. That is we are going to learn right now. Dumont went on to clarify the sociological implications of this methodological assertion. By putting ourselves in the school of the Indology, we learn in the first place never to forget that Bharat is one. The very existence and influence of the traditional higher Sanskritic civilization demonstrates without question the unity of Bharat. Okay, so largely the Christian colonizer, what they saw was, since they saw that all these Varnas were separate, so they were not one people. Keep in mind, the Westerner or the Christian colonizer is used to seeing an entire geography following just one faith. Okay, remember when the nation states of Europe were formed after the Protestant Christian fight, okay, they were set up, or the geographical regions where one particular denomination of Christianity was practiced was formed into a nation state. So they are used to seeing people following just one set of rules. But when they came on the shores of Bharat, they saw that the people or the society was essentially classified into 4 Varnas. In fact, 5 Varnas, because there were people who were outcasts and excommunicated from their own Varna. That's a separate story. And those were the people that they were able to convert. And the fact that they were frustrated that they were not able to convert people from the other Varna says that the people in the Panchama, that is the 5th Varna, were not many. Okay. So yes, so this is the next book that I'm going to read, Homo Hierarchicus, 1966, an ambitious book that was hailed as a major work of theory and insight by anthropologists and Indologists alike, and was immediately installed as a benchmark for debates. Okay, so this is the next one. Let's see what comes across. And yes, this is the word that I learned, unstintingly. I had to Google the meaning. I had also to Google the pronunciation. How do I say this word? So yes, this means somebody who is very generous, who is benevolent without limits, without restraint, unhinged charity. That is unstintingly. Yes, this is the amount that I could read for today. That is, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you're enjoying. You can look at my other stuff. I've made other playlists on my YouTube channel about the history, about philosophy, and if you are a student, you can look at my English teaching videos, my math teaching videos, and my science teaching videos as well. And if there is something that you need some personalized help with, you can get in touch with me via WhatsApp or email. The links are already mentioned at appropriate places in the bios of my Instagram and YouTube as well. And lastly, there are some PDFs that are provided to people. Those are basically a compilation of irrefutable facts. Okay, I see a lot of people, they want to defend Bharat and her civilization, our civilization, on social media platforms, because let's face it, the world is hell-bent on convincing us that our civilization is not good. We are very backward people. The country of Bharat has no future unless they adapt those Western principles, and so on and so forth. Even on all social media platforms, I think a lot of people thought that since now X was bought by Elon Musk, there might be some degree of fairness on that platform about us, about our civilization and our country. But no, it is a trend on social media that if you speak bad about Bharat and her civilization, you will gain traction. And a lot of bad that these people speak about Bharat is unfounded, is basically a popular narrative that somebody set for some political gains. So if you need to fight that, you need some irrefutable facts. That is what we provide you through these PDFs. You can check out my LinkedIn profile for such PDFs, or you can get in touch with me via WhatsApp and I will provide those PDFs. Thank you for watching.